Hello, everyone. I hope you were listening to me correctly. Let me know if you see any voices, glitches on my voice or anything. But thank you very much for being on this show and continuously watching the episode that's coming towards you. I'm really exciting because this time we have some wonderful guests, and the topic we're discussing today is pretty much what you're actually looking forward to learning. So let me give you some perspective what the episode is and what the channel is all about. In each episode of Cloud Native Podcast, we dive into the topics including or ranging from infrastructure automation to CI/CD workflows, exploring the latest trends, best practices, real world experiences shared by industry experts and thought leaders. So, whether you are a seasoned platform engineer or a DevOps, or simply passionate about staying ahead in the rapidly evolving tech landscape, this channel is for you. So, let me show you or give you some glimpses of what we actually covering today. So, you heard about and you know from your peers and you're working on the cloud, you pretty much know that setting up private cloud can seem daunting. What if there was a way to enjoy the best of both worlds? Imagine having a private cloud that's as easy to use as the public cloud with no setup fees, with pay as you go pricing, but still enjoying the cost saving, performance, and security benefits of running on your own hardware. This is exactly the problem Cumulus aiming to solve. And with that, I head over to the co founder of this product, Danny Nisoff, on, on this channel. Over to you, Daniel, and thank you very much for being on the show and share about your journey and some of the glimpses of the project.
Hi, Sam. Thank you very much for hosting me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here. And I think you described the mission statement of Cumulus really well. Um, if you speak to the industry as a whole, you'll get the feeling that private cloud is out. I just read an article last week where one company called I think it was called Sabra that had 17 data centers, 40,000 servers, and they were shutting them down and moving to public cloud. And I actually am a big believer in private cloud where developers actually own the platform that they use, where you don't have this threat of metered billing constantly hanging over you, and where you can actually create a platform that is a really good fit for your use case. And I think it'd be a shame if we all had to shut down and move to the public cloud. So we're trying to reverse that trend of public cloud and making private cloud attractive again.
Absolutely, that pretty much the problem and the recurring solution actually exists. So let me give you people a link to this product that we're actually mentioning today. So that is the spelling is Qumulus, and is some sort of in the domains of private cloud solution. And please go ahead over to cumulus.io for no more detail about it. And I believe many of us watching us right now, so please feel free to share what you are facing, some of the challenges in private cloud. And so it could be a great to know what the audience is actually heading up to. But let's me, because I have crafted some of the questionnaire upfront, so that I try to understand the project a little bit more better, to educate myself what is Cumulus today and what is actually future going forward. So first question, Danny, is for you. What initially motivated you to create Cumulus and address cloud repatriation?
So I think private cloud in its current form factor isn't working. If you look at the industry, the growth, amongst small companies, many of them have tried private cloud, have had a bad experience, and have moved away. And I don't believe that those problems are unsolvable. Now, As a user of private cloud, I've been using private cloud for some 10 or 15 years. First, it was VMware when VMware first came out, then CloudStack, which was another open source cloud project, private cloud project, and then I used OpenStack. And I really enjoyed the freedom, the control that private cloud gave me, and the fact that each developer had their own private space where they were free to do anything without recrimination, without coming in Monday morning and getting told off because they left a VM on overnight, or without some misfunctioning application that generates loads of logs and generates thousands of dollars of bills. Um, when I worked as a DevOps consultant for a couple of large UK companies recently, um, what I noticed was the practice in the industry has changed from where in the past developers used to play on their own hardware. They were now developing on the cloud. And that was slowing down the development process. They had no sandbox because it was too expensive. So all their code was actually experimenting on customers' actual resources. And that was strange to me. I didn't understand why we had to develop on customers' hardware. Shouldn't we be developing on a playground somewhere, on a sandbox somewhere? But then when I asked for access to the sandbox, they said, "Oh no, you need a really good use case." And I once did ask for the access to the sandbox because I wanted to try out Atlantis, which was a Terraform GitOps platform, and it was amazing. It was a really nice platform. And I played around with it on Thursday, and I thought I switched it off, but evidently I didn't, because on Monday morning I walked into the office and I into a disciplinary because I left the Atlantis platform running overnight and incurred a bill of $500. And I know that I spoke to a developer this week that actually said his boss made a mistake left something running on Friday and came in Monday morning to a $500,000 bill. So I know that my $500 is small, but for me it was big. So I don't think that developers should have to live with this sort of constant tension over them. I think they should have the freedom to focus on their code, on making magic happen, and 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 cost shouldn't be there as a constant stress. And that's one of the things that private cloud gives you, amongst other benefits as well.
Yes, absolutely. That pretty much the benefit of having a private cloud is basically you own some of the pieces and you can actually control the cost. That is a bigger fear for a lot of the investor and the companies by directly going into the cloud because some things aren't your control and the pay as a go bill model is sometimes skyrocketing and having something in the hands of private data center or the private cloud, you can control some of the tuning, making sure that only the things I'm actually using is set it up and function properly. So I think that is currently, and that's pretty much a good, I think the good model for the business as well. So let's talk about, and I'm trying to understand right now, can you elaborate on the hidden cost and the performance limitations developers might encounter in the public cloud, leading them back to private solutions.
So, okay, let me first tackle the hidden cost and then we'll look at performance. But I actually I'm trying to speak to developers and engage um, their opinions on what the struggles are with public cloud to ensure that we create something that's modeled for for their needs. And I asked the developer a question, and I said, if you could magically change one thing about public cloud, what would you change? And the developer answered, he doesn't know whenever he deploys resources how much they're actually going to cost him. Because with public cloud, you're metered in various different ways, whether it's traffic egress, storage IOPS, log usage, snapshots, backups. So the simple cost that you get when you deploy a resource, it isn't just that. I was trying to explore what the cost was to run a small Kubernetes cluster on AWS EKS, and I found it hard to work out the price. So I looked up a Medium article, and this developer he actually tried out deploying a Kubernetes cluster to EKS, and he looked at the bill at the end of the month, and that was $800. So cost estimation in public cloud is very expensive due to the metered nature. And regarding the performance, so cloud by its very nature is distributed. And when you have a server, the server might be in one room, the switch might be in a different building, the storage might be somewhere else. And because the fact that it's designed to scale to hundreds of thousands of users and a lot of traffic, it has to be distributed. But that distribution means that your resources are going to be slow. We've done some performance tests, and we've seen that a small private cloud where your servers, your switch, your disk are all in the same rack with a very simple architecture, and the latency can sometimes it can be many times faster. We've seen throughput go 10 times faster. So many workloads um, would benefit from having a simple, fast private cloud, and they don't need the benefit of being able to scale from 1 to 1 million in 5 seconds. They don't need that. They just need something fast that works for their simple CI/CD pipelines or their data processing pipelines, and that's really another sort of benefit that private cloud gives you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think like currently you see in the industry, there's pretty much a challenge of running containers in the private cloud or the public cloud. And plus the containers and the when you actually spike instances on demand, when you have traffic arrive and eventually you hit some more traffic and on the demand things are going to be actually piled up, the resources required for the application that running on demand more resources, so you have to instantly deploy more instances to actually make sure you actually have a full loaded capacity for those apps, and that requires a lot of the bill at the end of the day. And if you don't have proper guardrails on that environment, it's going to be a really challenging. And that's where I think today is a need. You have more controlled for hardware infrastructure resources, and you want them to utilize them properly. And that's where the private cloud is actually eventually going in that spectrum as well. And plus we want some open source technology stack that we love about. Might we want GitOps tooling, we want Prometheus and Grafana for observability, and we want some ingress controller and for some load balancing, some network policies, and some policy and control for those solutions as well. So let us know. We talk about the essence of the private cloud. We talk about the limitation that the developers have and the cost associated with the private public cloud. Now the perfect alignment of the question came onto my mind is, how does your Cumulus differentiate itself from existing private cloud solution, particularly regarding ease of use and cost effectiveness?
So I think we have to be clear that the current model of private cloud is somewhat failing. When OpenStack, the leading open source private cloud platform, when it was first created, I'm sure it was created for use for more than just telcos and large enterprise. I'm sure that the developers had hoped that it would reach more of the market and be used amongst small companies and hobbyists, etc. And I saw an article in the Register saying that whilst OpenStack was growing as a product and growing 60% year on year, they were only seeing growth amongst telcos and enterprise users, and there was little interest amongst the smaller companies to use it. And this was due to the complexity and of setting it up, and it was difficult to use. So I think if private cloud is going to succeed, it has to reinvent itself, and it has to make itself accessible to the grassroots. It has to solve these complexity and scalability. And I think what nobody has yet achieved is making private cloud cheap, cheap and easy to support at scale. If a company with deep pockets wants to build a private cloud today, typically you'd go to a hardware vendor such as Dell, you'd buy the servers, you've got a big capex expense, then you'd have to liaise with the data centers, you'd have to arrange an internet connection, you'd have to have a support team, and you'd have to get a cloud OS. And that is a big task and it requires a lot of skill and a big budget. Um, I saw an article by David Heinemeier Hansen, the founder of Ruby on Rails, and they were they publicly he publicly chronicled his journey from public cloud onto on premise, and he was spending $2.6 million a year on cloud, which they were replacing with $600,000 worth of new Dell servers, and that gave them much more capacity. So that's a 5 times capex cost of $600,000 versus $2.3 million worth of cloud. But what was interesting about his journey wasn't the fact that private cloud was cheaper, was the fact that he couldn't find a single vendor to support him on that journey because they were all way overpriced. They wouldn't, and every single vendor wouldn't actually give him the pricing. On the website, there was no pricing. So you had to go, you had to meet and meet and meet, and then eventually they released the pricing after wasting a lot of his time. And he got so fed up, he ended up having to build that private cloud platform himself. And I think that shows a real market opportunity because in today's economic climate, we're all cost sensitive. We're all realizing that public cloud is really expensive. It grew in the cost of public cloud in Europe grew in 2023 at 30%. So public cloud is getting more expensive. We're much more sensitive to cost, and there's no easy way to build a private cloud. I think that shows the opportunity that we have over here.
Yes, absolutely. As you're prescribing perfectly well, because even in a setting up a private cloud can be a complex and not a cheaper option, to be honest, because there is so much of the services available. You have to set up OSs, then the hardware, then the rest of infrastructure thing needed below the OSs that OS need, and then some specific requirement for the OS that requires some infrastructure for to run on. So that is basically, it's not cheaper. That is quite clearly adopted, and that's actually a biggest hurdle that I also see in the industry of actually adopting enterprise and adoption of private cloud as well. And with the essence and the presence of Kubernetes and orchestration technologies, it's becoming more costly now, because there is so much more services, so much more tuning that you needed to do in order to do efficient scaling and using of infrastructure resources for the private cloud as well. So as you mentioned, it's a perfect opportunities to tap into the market and to understand the current challenges and draw out some solution in that front as well. And that's where my next question come from. With the public cloud market still expected to grow, what specific market segment are you targeting with Cumulus?
So I've spoken to a couple of investors, and they think that we're crazy for going against the trend. Private cloud is out, public cloud is in. But I just want to point out that the data is actually showing something very different. If you look at some statistics online, they show that public cloud is growing year on year, and it's growing at, I think, a current rate of around 23%. But surprisingly, private cloud is forecasted to grow at a much faster rate of 30%. So it seems like the industry is waking up to the cost of public cloud, to the limitations of public cloud, and realizing that private cloud is the answer. However, I think the sort of the market segment is really difficult. I think there's many different market segments. There's, for instance, high frequency trading. There's many niches, security, where all gaming, where performance, or from a compliance perspective, private cloud would be beneficial. But actually, I'm trying to build a product that I want to use for me. That's the market segment that I'm targeting. Small development teams that want the freedom to develop, want the access to powerful machines, and the grassroots and the hobbyists and the enthusiasts and the small DevOps teams. That's the market I'm trying to attract, and I'm hoping that when I think if we look at any successful DevOps tool that has made it, there's one formula that they've followed. They target the grassroots, then the enterprise follows. And I think that's the target, the vision of Cumulus.
Yes, absolutely. I pretty much agree with this. And I think before we jumping on some of the IDP and the platform engineering discussion, and I can understand because we're speaking about some of the wonderful model that the Cumulus is actually adopting to make sure the cost at the end of the day is cheaper. And it's cheaper, and more of the companies and the more of the startup trying to adopt it. And we talk about so many times a cost effectiveness as of 20 minutes of talk. So can you let briefly explain like how the Cumulus making sure that the private cloud become cheaper?
So if you search around on the internet, you can get some incredible deals on bare metal servers. Hetzner last week in Germany released a new AMD server. The CPU is the 10th fastest processor. It's 48 core. It comes with unlimited traffic. It comes with 256 gig of RAM, and that is around €200 per month. For some reason, which is difficult to, you know, I've been in this industry for many years now, and I really can't explain. Servers are cheap. Bare metal is cheap. Cloud is expensive. I don't know how those two make sense, but that's the fact. And all we need to do is somehow find ways to tap into that bare metal server market and make it accessible to small teams and end users. And then you should have a winning formula.
Yes, absolutely. And as mentioned by the Danny, there is a website, cumulus.io, and that's where have some very good detailed info and comparison that you definitely check that out as well. So as you speak about, and now I try to move the conversation to a very important topic, and that's I think audience and everybody watching to us want to know your opinion as well, because we're getting into the internal developer portal, and I know you like the term unified developer portal more than IDP, so I try to convert IDP into the UDP, and then you let us know why you use the unified versus internal, and then I tried. Now the next phrase of our conversation is revolving around IDP, and IDP is set of services or self-service workflow. But at the end of the day, the infrastructure is somewhere else. IDP is not giving you the infrastructure resources; is actually removing or abstracting away the complexity. But the data center, private, public cloud, and the services will still live in somewhere else. So how so beyond cost effectiveness, how does Cumulus UDP or IDP solution aim to improve the developer productivity and creativity?
So I think so. Ultimately, like you explained, IDP is a combination of many different services, such as cloud resources, whether it's VMs or Kubernetes clusters, combined with security products, observability products, etc., all coming together so that developers can just focus on creating code, and magically an orchestration system out there somehow takes that code, deploys it to servers, creates images, does CI/CD, and does everything that's needed, so that the developer's code suddenly materializes into a working service. And an IDP is built of a combination of a cloud platform and then many different tools. They can be cloud specific tools. So in the AWS, you might be using ECR for your images, you might be using IAM for your policy, and you'll use EKS for Kubernetes. If you're a different cloud, you use different services, etc. Now, one parallel I like to sort of compare a cloud platform is building a house. You can live in rented apartments, you can move around from room to room for your whole life, and you can never have a home. Cloud is the home for a development team. Now, you can live in a hotel, and that's like living in the public cloud, where you have no control over anything, where you can't make it permanent. Or you could build your own private cloud, and this is your home. And then that's when building an IDP has much more meaning because all the integration that you do will be permanent. And you'll never have to move away because you're in control. If the platform doesn't fit your bill, fit your requirements, you can change it. You always have that flexibility. So building an IDP around private cloud has much more value. And especially if you build your IDP using open source components, because you're never going to be outpriced. When we first started Qumulus, we wanted to use cloud logging because we didn't have time to actually build a logging platform. And we started, and developers started deploying machines. In the first month, I got a bill of $1,000 for a few VMs because they were charging per node. And that's the problem with using software as a service products that bill you per user, per developer, per resource, per node, etc. You can suddenly find that you're outpriced and you have no choice because you've built your whole developer experience around those products. So it's a far safer bet to build your home, build all the tools that you need, all your processes around open source products, because you've got two things. You'll have a large community, you'll have a huge amount of flexibility, there's no vendor lock-in, and you can always make it work somehow. You don't have that flexibility with the public cloud. And that's why I believe that an IDP should be built using open source components because the investment that you put will always be there.
Yes, absolutely. Strongly agree. I think there's a very good integration and a very unique context if you develop or actually have a coordination between or intersection between an IDP and a private cloud and plus some of the open source tooling as well. Because open source tooling is you have a lot of the community support, a lot of the material to extend the extensibility and customization option plus is running on the private cloud and it's becoming a cheaper compared to the private public cloud with that a lot of the offering with a lot of pay as you go pricing as well. So it's a very unique in conjunction as well. I would love to see more innovation happening in that front as well. So now what we try to understand how does idp and cumulus works, what supports we offer. So, Danny, what kind of support and resources does Cumulus offer to developers using your IDP platform?
Okay, so I just want to point out that today, as it stands, Qumulus is now a private cloud platform. It isn't an IDP platform. However, we've been lucky enough to be awarded a grant by the British government, the UK Innovate Smart Grant, where they've awarded us £350,000 to build the next phase, which is an IDP platform. And the idea is that we iterate, we take the private cloud, we iterate, and we add services bit by bit until eventually we reach a full IDP platform. So this is a long journey, and we will build it based on the requirements of our customers and based on feedback and ensuring that we're building a product that fits our customers' needs. So having the private cloud as a foundation for our IDP is really important because our IDP will be built around the Cumulus private cloud. However, I think what's important for any startup, and it's the magic that makes a startup successful, are the customers. And delighting the customers, it's having a community, a customer base that feels valued and listened to. And customer experience is going to be key for us. And the journey that we want to, the goal that we want to, the mission that we want to achieve is making IDP and open source and cloud accessible and easy to use so that a student learning to develop shouldn't have to learn how to integrate 10 different tools and loads of different technology because there's so much complexity out there. We need simplicity, and that's our mission to create to take these amazing tools that have been developed by the community over many years and somehow create a layer of simplicity on top of them.
Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree. And I think now, before we actually let you off, is what advice you give to inspire entrepreneur in the technology industry, specifically working in the IDP or platform engineering front?
I think the first thing I'll say is don't do it. Well, let me rephrase that. um, I think I did hear, I did remember reading, I think, some comment by the founder of NVIDIA saying that if he could replay his life, he wouldn't build NVIDIA again because it was too hard. So building a startup is really hard, and I saw a video by Y Combinator saying don't do it if your mission is to make money because there's going to be easier ways. Do build a startup if the mission resonates with you, if it's more to you than just money, and then there's there is so much knowledge out there, so much experience out there. I've watched a series of Y Combinator videos that were amazing. I think one of the comments one of the ingredients to success of a startup is having a co-founder. Don't do it alone. It's far too hard to do it alone. But I think the single most valuable piece of advice that I'm just passing advice that I've heard from my mentors, from my friends, from people that experienced. And the single piece of advice I think that is probably the most valuable is make sure to get customers on board as quickly as possible. Because without customers, you've got no feedback, you've got no validation that what you're building is actually valuable, is actually solving problems, is actually needed. And without customers that are passionate about your product, investors have no way of knowing whether this idea that you think is the best thing since sliced bread is actually has any value. So customers on board, you need to find a way. I know that building a product is hard and getting customers on board can slow you down, but get customers on board as quickly as possible. I think that's the single most valuable thing that I should have known as well. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You nailed it perfectly because initial customer adoption, you need some sort of early adopter for your platform and your product. And those early adopter will be your customers. And having them on board initially is the way to go because you need to let them know that the services that you are building internally that actually handed over to these early adopter that your customers are. So it's I think a lot of the business that is actually successful in that front are those who have early adopter or early customers that they move along with their journey as well. So that is absolutely in perfectly clear and fine. So Danny, last few question we wrap up because I wanted and people wanted to understand number first, and then I ask another question is what's Cumulus concept and philosophy as of today?
It's about stream. It's about streamlining open source and making open source accessible. So taking all the amazing technologies out there that the community has spent years building that are today too complex for the average developer or the student to operate because they require so much know-how, and try and streamline that under one umbrella, one orchestration system. But it's also about empowering the end user. So we're not interested in selling you a service where we lock you in, where we're in control. We'll operate Cumulus from servers that we rent, from servers that you rent, from your own servers, from your own. We want we want to find a business model that works by empowering the end user, allowing the user to be in control of their compute, in control of their data by using open standards, open source technology, so that the user never feels trapped with our system, and creating that safety and that transparency and that trust there surely has to be a business model that works where we can make a profit and the customer can feel safe.
Yes, absolutely. And that's pretty much pretty much the, I think, a very winning combo of having an open source with private cloud plus an IDP in some your control and flexibility and plus freedom to use it and freedom to tune it off and freedom to actually control the knob that you actually required and plus freedom to have flexibility and extensibility on top is a very winning much combination here as well. So final question before I wrap up the episode today: if we look ahead, how do you envision that the cumulus involving within the dynamic cloud computing landscape?
So, firstly, I'm hoping that somehow 2024 will be the year that triggers the concept of cloud repatriation, where developers start to question the default approach that we've had until now of cloud first, and we start looking at hybrid approaches where we have maybe our sandboxes, our development environments, our data processing environments on private cloud, maybe with our production workloads on the public cloud. But I think today, private cloud isn't just about compute, isn't just about Kubernetes, but it's about offering a complete developer experience, complete developer platform. So, um, so initially, our MVP is private cloud. We're hoping to constantly evolve by adding services one by one until it becomes a complete developer platform, complete with a marketplace, where customers have the freedom to add their own products, so they're not locked into our own, the products that we select. But hopefully, it's going to be a community-owned, community-run marketplace. So that's the vision that we have. But I think this is a 10-year journey, and we're just at the beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you very much, Danny. It's been a pleasure talking to you on this episode
It's been a
on this
pleasure.
channel, and hope to invite you in the future as well.
Thank you.
And let me remind the audience, this is I think this is the first time Danny recorded or being presenting live on the live stream about any public presence and talking about the cumulus. So that's a big achievement for me myself. I'm able to understand the cumulus concept and philosophy. And Danny, you have to do it more because you're a very good communicator and public speaker in these technologies, and we want to have more people talking to us about these challenges of public cloud and how the private cloud can be a winning combo with open source tooling and plus IDP that your company is developing. But great talking to you today. So now the final question, and people like to know, they heard about the Cumulus a lot and we talk about it. Let us know, let the people know how they actually uh, see the demos and want to connect with you some of the ways.
So on our website, there should be a button to request a trial. You can. So firstly, on the website, you can actually see the pricing. So you don't have to go into any meeting where we explore. You can see the pricing, and essentially, our pricing model is very simple. We rent servers from either Hetzner or OVH, and we're looking to add other providers, and we add a small markup on top. So that's our pricing model. We can make it clearer now if you speak to us, or there's some starter packages which start from $150 or €150, depending on location. So you can start from something from a really low base. You request a trial. We'll have a meeting with you. We'll just make sure that the product is a good fit. We'll give you access to a trial server, And then if you, we'll give you some demo code which you can use, Terraform code you can use to sort of try out the platform and see how it all works, ties together. And then once you like it, we can choose a server for you depending on what your requirements are, and we can build a platform really quickly within a day or two that should be a good fit for you. You're on mute, same.
Absolutely. And that on that note, I think it would be a very easier. Go to the Cumulus.io, book a meeting with the team, and get some demos flowing, and make sure read out some of the comparison, some of the blogging, some of the posting, and make sure you actually go into this website more oftenly, because there are some more things in the horizon that are coming up in near future as well. But I hope this is enough for you to convince you that the private cloud should be the future, and there are some good benefit of investing in the private cloud as well. So that's Cumulus is one of the solution that is actually doing and going in that front as well. So you need to be very, very focused and going to the places that these people are actually putting their solution on the wild west of network as well. But I really enjoy talking to Danny today, and hopefully this is our meeting number first, and I will invite Danny as soon as some more news in that front, and specifically when something happening on the IDP front. I spoke about more things because that is a very innovative and rapidly evolving space as well. And I do understand, I do know, and by talking to Danny today, is a private cloud, open source technologies, and IDP can be a perfect winning combination going forward as well. So if you have any questions for the if we miss any question, please put them on the chat. I will ask Danny to answer those at the end as well. And Peter on the chat saying, thanks for all the insightful questions, and congrats, Danny, for the amazing objective of Cumulus Cloud. Thanks, Patry, for being on with us on this show. And hopefully, Danny will be back again with some more winning things to talk about as well when the Cumulus becoming a big thing as well. So, with that, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this talk. I will be meeting you again tomorrow with another episode. And we'll be talking about a new tool, that new platform, that's a platform. And I will give you some glimpses of what we are covering tomorrow. As a viewer of this show, you likely familiar with the concept of private cloud share responsibility model, which outline the collaborative effort between cloud provider and consumer. And my guest tomorrow tell you that is the same case with the platform engineering as well. It will share you how the platform engineering can adopt share responsibility model, and is particularly delivering an unpacking solution via Ada platform. So hope you will join us again hour earlier than today, and we'll talk about more things on that front as well. But thank you very much for watching this episode. And if you have questions, put them on the chat, and we'll be try our best to answer those in the future as well. So with that, Danny, it was a pleasure talking to you. You've done great talking about your
Thank you.
product, and I want you to do it more.
Thank you, Saeem. I couldn't have done it without your support, so thank you for all your support.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye. Meeting you again, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.